Good morning. Video is for lesson 108 for Thursday, April 9th. This is fraction word problems involving scaling and repeated addition. Both scaling and repeated addition are used in multiplication. So even though there's ways to think about this that aren't multiplication, we're going to be mostly focusing on how to multiply fractions today. So before we start, there's just some pictures here, and I want to talk to you about what these pictures might mean. So in the first picture, we have a ruler with 3 equal groups of 1/2. So if you were to look at where it stops at 1.5, right? So here's what you should think of this about, like what it means, right? You can think of it as 3 equal groups of 1/2. So one way to do that is to either add 1/2 plus 1/2 plus 1/2, or multiply 1/2 times 3, which is what I've done here. So 1/2 times 3 over 1 is going to give you 3 over 2, which, like I said, is equal to 1.5. So think of it as 3/2 or 1.5. The second picture shows kind of a little bit more complicated, but you've got a bar diagram with a total of 35. And you can see that this bar diagram has been split into 5 equal pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then there's a question mark bracketing 3 of the pieces. So one way to think of this is 3/5 of 35. Or in other words, if you were to break up 35 into 5 equal pieces, first of all, how many would be in each one? Well, if you broke 35 into 5 equal pieces, you would get 7 in each one, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 7 times 5 is 35. So now that we know that each of these boxes stands for 7, you could think of now multiplying 7 times 3 to figure out 7, 7, 7. So I showed you this with whole numbers. So doing 35 divided by 5 is 7, and then 7 times 3 gives you 21. And the cool thing is this also works if you just multiply 3/5 times 35, which I've shown you right here. 3/5 times 35 gives you 105 over 5, which if you actually do the division turns out into 21, which is the same answer as you get this way. So even though the picture looks a little bit complicated and this idea of scaling 35 down to only 3/5 of its size is a little complicated, the actual math this way is not complicated. So think of it this way if that helps, but then you can also check it by multiplying the fractions. And again, I have this posted on Google Classroom as just a PDF so that you can look at that sort of written out. So fact number 1, just to remind you, when you multiply, you're finding either part of a whole, so 3/5 of 35, part of a part, like 1/2 of 1/4, or a total of equal groups. So just for a quick concept review, we've got 3 sample problems down here. So the first one is a whole number times a fraction. So remember, when you multiply a whole number times a fraction, you're going to shrink down or scale down the whole number. So 14 over 1 times 5 over 6 is 70 over 6, which divides out to 11 and 4/6. I know that because 6 goes into 70 11 times, which is 66, leaving me 4 left over, so 11 and 4/6. And it's true that we scaled down the 14 to 5/6 of its size, so 11 and 4/6. In this middle one, remember you need to turn both mixed numbers into improper fractions. So 4 and 2/5 times 8 and 1/6 actually becomes 22 over 5 times 49 over 6, which actually turns out to be kind of a really big number when you start to do the multiplication. So I've shown it over here. 22 times 49 should give you 1,078. And then 5 times 6 is 30. So left with 1,078 divided by 30, I actually just did the long division down here. And when you do that, you get 35, remainder 28. Now remember, oops, I wrote 3. Sorry, guys. That should be 35. 35, remainder 28. So remember, 35 is going to be your whole number. So the whole number is 35. The remainder becomes your numerator, and the denominator stays the same. So let me show you the right answer. 35 and 28 over 30. There you go. Okay? And then the last one is really simple. This is a fraction times a fraction. So you're going to do 2/3 times 9/10, and you get 18 over 30, which I just reduced down to 9/15. So again, this is on the drive if you want to see it all written out, except I need to go update that one because I made a mistake. All right, cool. Let's move on to example A. This one's a little bit simpler. So a full shopping bag holds 5 3/4 pounds of food and packaging. Jared can carry 4 full shopping bags into his house on one trip. So if we want to know how much he can carry, it's really just repeated addition. 5 3/4 times 4, or 5 3/4 plus 5 3/4 plus 5 3/4 plus 5 3/4. So I just wrote it out as multiplication right here. So in order to multiply a mixed number, I need to convert 5 3/4 to 23 over 4. And then I'm going to multiply that times 4 over 1, and you're going to end up with 92 over 4. See, I did 23 times 4 right there. Gives me 92 over 4. When you actually do 92 divided by 4, you get 23. So your answer is 23. And that makes a lot of sense to me, because if you're carrying something that's almost 6 pounds, your answer is going to be almost 24, because 6 times 4 is 24. So that's why the answer 23 makes sense. All right, let's look at example B. So we've got 2 5/6 hours filing papers, and Jamie listened to music for 3/4 of that time. So she did not listen to music the entire time. She only listened to it 3/4 of the time. So I drew a bar diagram here that totals 2 5/6, and I cut it into 4 equal parts, and I shaded 3/4 of them. So that's really what we're finding, a little bit less than 2 5/6. So written out, it's 2 5/6 times 3/4. Again, convert your mixed number to an improper fraction, which gives you 17 over 6, times 3 over 4 is going to give you 51 over 24, which when you actually divide it is going to give you 2 3/24, because 24 goes into 51 2 whole times with 3 left over. So that is your math for today. You're going to be working on multiplying. Just take it slow, draw pictures if it helps you, rewatch the video. There's plenty of stuff in Reteach that can also help you remember how to do this, and we will see you on Zoom. Have a good day.